Week 1 of the 2023 college football season is wrapped up, and so today I'll be giving you guys my Week 2 college football rankings. The first week of action has finally wrapped up all the way through Monday night, and most went as expected, although we definitely saw a couple of big surprises as well that could eventually lead to maybe our big surprise teams of the 2023 season. So we'll be recapping it all here today and getting you guys ready for week 2. So with that, let's get into it. Starting out with your top 7, Georgia, no surprise, remains number 1. And honestly, I know Florida State looked incredible in week 1 against LSU, but I just think until Georgia proves that they shouldn't be the number 1 team. I mean, this is a team that's won back-to-back national championships. I think they should remain number 1. So Georgia 1-0 on the season. They are the team to beat, I think, in college football right now. Florida State's number 2. I've got them jumping up 6. Florida State, I mean, the way they looked against LSU, a close game at first, but the way that this team played in the second half and just dominated LSU, it was really impressive what this team was able to do. And Florida State is suddenly looking like a team that could – this is a true national contender, I think, in Florida State. I mean, they've got the experience. You look at the way they improved over last season. I mean, this was a Florida State team last year that was really good. They had a couple of really close losses, and that was about it. So Florida State's really no surprise seeing them as high as they are right now. And, keep an eye on the Noles. That is probably your ACC favorite, probably by a long shot right now. Michigan's number 3. And Michigan, I consider keeping them at number 2. I still think Michigan is top team in the Big Ten for sure right now. I mean, they're the most experienced. They're the most built to win, I think. And beat East Carolina week 1, 30-3. They're 1-0, obviously. And I do have Florida State just because of the way that Florida State looked against LSU in particular in the second half. I just feel like that they should be ahead of at least Michigan as of right now. USC's number 4. I've said USC the entire offseason. This is a team that I really like a lot. Offensively, could have made an argument this was the best offense in the country last season, and it was just the defense that really held this team back. And so it's critical heading into this season that the defense is better because the offense is totally built to win. So, I mean, for USC, strong start, 66-14 win over Nevada. I mean, the Pac-12, this is as good as the Pac-12 has been in a long time in 2023. A lot of depth, and USC I've got at the top, but, I mean, there are teams behind them. Washington, I've got them at number 6. I mean, they beat Boise State 56-19. Boise State is not a bad football team. That's probably a team that's going to be right up there to win the Mountain West this season, and Washington took care of them no problem, made it look easy. And so Pac-12 is a legit conference, and it's wild to consider that this is probably the last season of the Pac-12 as we know it, considering this is, I mean, you could argue the Pac-12 is the second best conference in college football based on the teams at the top. So, I mean, USC number 4, I feel like they should be top 4, and Washington should not be far behind. I've got them at 6, and Alabama's right in the middle at number 5. They beat Middle Tennessee 56-7. Milroe overall looked pretty good. We're going to learn a lot about this team, though, when they take on Texas coming up here in week 2. Ohio State's number 7. I do have this team a bit lower than the AP poll, etc., but I do think that, I mean, Ohio State, Kyle McCord, we got to see this offense perform better if I'm going to put them higher. I think defensively this team is going to be excellent all year, but offensively they're clearly still getting warmed up a bit, and I do think that give them a couple of weeks, Ohio State could be a really solid national contender, but as of right now, I am going to be conservative on them and keep them at number 7. But with that, moving on to 8 through 14, Penn State is number 8. They beat West Virginia after a slower start. 38-15 was the final, so a dominant win in the end. But Penn State is definitely a team to keep an eye on. Honestly, I mean, I know that they're still a bit young in some areas as well. They're kind of in a similar situation to Ohio State, but the margin between Ohio State and Penn State is very, very close. I think both teams are pretty much just as good as each other. I think Michigan is definitely a step up from Ohio State and Penn State, but Nittany Lions are definitely a dark horse team that I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they topped Ohio State this season and definitely gave Michigan a run for the Big Ten East. But Penn State, keep an eye on them. They're 1-0 to start the season. Oregon's number 9. They completely destroyed Portland State in week 1, 81-7. And I mean, honestly, it's Portland State. Got to remember that. But Oregon's a legit team as well. I've got 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 9. The Ducks offensively going to be brutal this season, and the defense, that's I'm more confident in the offense of Oregon than the defense, but they're definitely up there with Washington and USC for the conference. Notre Dame's number 10. They are 2-0 to start out the season. They beat Tennessee State there in week 1, 56-3. So really dominant start for them. They beat Navy like 42-3 in week 0. So Notre Dame off to a hot start. I've got them at number 10. You can expect them to be a contender this season as well. That offense, Sam Hartman in there, yeah, they're going to be good. So keep an eye on them. Texas number 11. They beat Rice 37-10. They're probably my Big 12 favorite right now, but K-State and Oklahoma. I mean, I said this all offseason. Texas, K-State, Oklahoma, your Big 3 in the Big 12. I think Texas is still my slight favorite, but we're going to learn a lot in week 2 when they take on Bama. Tennessee's number 12. They beat Virginia 49-13. Tennessee, I'm being a little bit conservative on them as well. I know they're ranked in the top 10, but I think Tennessee is definitely kind of, you could say, in a similar situation to like Penn State in the Big 10. I mean, you got Georgia and Alabama who are definitely rated above them and considered better than Tennessee, but Tennessee could totally top one of those two teams this season. And so, yeah, keep an eye on the Vols for sure. Definitely the true dark horse in the SEC. LSU's 13. I've got them dropping 9 positions, lost to Florida State. Just kind of got kind of ugly in the second half. First half was pretty good. I think LSU can still have a great season for sure, but I do have them dropping quite a bit after that loss. Oregon State's 14. I mean, this team beat San Jose State 42-17. Oregon State could be for real this season. Uiagalelei looking really good, and Clemson transfer quarterback. Yeah, he's exactly what Oregon State needed, I think, and this is a fresh start for him, which is also what he needed. So, Beavers, keep an eye on them. That's another Pac-12 team in the top 15. Definitely keep an eye on Oregon State. 15-21. Speak of the Pac-12, Utah's number 15. They beat Florida 24-11 in week 1. That was on Thursday night. I do have them dropping a couple positions just because I was more impressed with a couple of teams that I wanted to move ahead of them, Oregon State being one of them. But Utah's still a team to really keep an eye on. If they can stay healthy, Utah could definitely be a legit contender as well. North Carolina, really like this team. Drake May offensively. I think this is a really built-to-win team. And defensively, overall looked really good against South Carolina. Beat them 31-17. Got to remember, I mean, South Carolina is definitely, I mean, they've got multiple questionable areas. I think Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback that shows a lot of potential, but North Carolina should have won that game, and they definitely did. They're 1-0 to start the season, and keep an eye on them. That's probably your second-place team in the ACC right now. Kansas State, number 17. They are staying in the same position. Same with Oklahoma. Both of them had shutout wins in week 1. Oklahoma 73-0 against Arkansas State. So strong starts for both teams. Really, I think K-State should be close to just as good in 2023 as they were last season. Oklahoma, I definitely see being improved, and overall a promising start for them. Texas A&M's number 19. This team beat New Mexico 52-10. And the Aggies are a team that I think is flying under the radar a bit. This is a team that is still very talented. I know that they were, I would say that they were the most disappointing team in the country last year by a big margin. And you look at the raw talent of this team, if they can just get some experience, I think Texas A&M is really a team that could be a legit contender. So keep an eye on them. They got a big game coming up here in week 2 against Miami, and that's where we're going to learn a lot, I think, about the Aggies. Duke is number 20. The way this team beat Clemson on Monday night was honestly insane. I mean, they were able to stop Clemson, force turnovers in the red zone multiple times. And Duke is a team that, I mean, they're definitely one to keep an eye on. I think Duke is, I mean, we should have known this heading into the season as well. With the experience this team has, they had a really good year last year, really were a surprise team. I mean, this Duke team is no joke, and I think they're a team to definitely keep an eye on moving forward. And Clemson on the other side, just a really disappointing loss. We'll see how this team responds moving forward, but what a disappointing game. Only scoring 7 points there. Kate Klubnik, a lot of hype this offseason, but that was shut down pretty quick on Monday night after the way that he played. And so we'll see how Clemson responds. I still think this is a Clemson team with a lot of potential. You just look at the experience and the talent and everything. There's a lot of potential here for Clemson. So I've still got them in the top 21. I've got them at 21. But definitely a team that I'm going to be a bit more conservative on moving forward. 22 through 25, Wisconsin's at 22. This team beat Buffalo 38-17. Close game at first. Wisconsin managed to win the game, though, by a lot, so won it by a few touchdowns. And Wisconsin, still probably my favorite in the Big Ten West. It was that way the entire offseason. And, I mean, Iowa showed a little bit of potential. I think they could be halfway decent. Minnesota just offensively looked terrible against Nebraska. So Wisconsin's probably your favorite in the West right now. Whether or not they can rival up against one of the East teams is very uncertain, but I do have Wisconsin at 22. Ole Miss is 23, Tulane is 24. Those two teams play each other in Week 2. Definitely one of the sleeper matchups that should definitely be one of the best games of Week 2. Ole Miss beat up Mercer 73-7. Tulane beat a halfway decent South Alabama team 37-17. So strong starts for both teams, and we'll see them play in Week 2. And Colorado cracks the top 25. I've got them at 25. I know in the AP poll that they're number 22, but I do want to be a bit conservative on them for now. I do think Colorado, if they can dominate Nebraska in Week 2, I'll probably put them top 20, maybe even top 15, but we'll see if Week 1 was a fluke, which I've got a feeling it wasn't a fluke. The way they beat TCU 45-42. Defensively could have been a lot better in that matchup, so the defense needs to be better. But offensively, I mean, that team looks sharp. So keep an eye on Colorado. I've got them at 25. Iowa's 26, Arkansas is 27. Those are your first 5 out. Miami after that, followed by Kentucky and then Kansas. I think Kansas is a team that's flying on the radar a bit as well. They're kind of in the same situation as like Duke out of the ACC. And so when Kansas plays Illinois this week, wouldn't be surprised if Kansas won it. So keep an eye on them. And obviously Iowa, I dropped them out of the rankings this week from 20. They did win in Week 1, beat Utah State in a closer matchup. Offensively, don't know if they have it figured out quite yet. I mean, Cade McNamara is a much better quarterback, but there's still a bit of uncertainty there. So I do have Iowa just barely outside, and TCU obviously dropping out after the brutal loss against Colorado. But with that, that's going to wrap it up for my Week 2 rankings. Appreciate you guys all watching as always. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this, and what teams do you think we should be keeping an eye on. But yeah, appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.